Thanks for joining me on episode 369 of the Inspired Stewardship Podcast.
Hey, I'm Nick Pavlidis from the Confessions of a Terrible Husband podcast. I challenge you to not be a terrible husband or wife or friend like me by being intentional about stewarding your relationships. One way to be inspired to be a better husband is to listen to this, the Inspired Stewardship Podcast with my friend, Scott Mader.
If you network with people at a deeper level, then all of a sudden you begin to develop your influence, because the truth is everyone loves to talk about themselves. Everyone wants to know that you care. Everyone wants to know that you really want to get to know them. And if they feel that, then they're going to want to get to know you.
Welcome and thank you for joining us on the Inspired Stewardship Podcast. If you truly desire to become the person who God wants you to be, then you must learn to use your time, your talent, and your treasures for your true calling. In the Inspired Stewardship Podcast, you will learn to invest in yourself, invest in others, and develop your influence so that you can impact the world.
In today's episode about developing your influence through stewarding your talent, I talk with you about using networking with purpose, how networking with purpose can develop your influence, and I give you some tips on how to network effectively no matter what your personality is.
You've heard me talk about developing your talent, and one of the best ways to do that is through books. But if you're like most people today, it's hard to find the time to read. And that's why today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Go to inspiredstewardship.com/audible to sign up, and you can get a 30-day free trial. There's over 180,000 titles to choose from, and you can pick one and listen your way to developing your talents via Audible. That's inspiredstewardship.com/audible to get your free trial and listen to great books the same way you're listening to this podcast.
In yesterday's episode, I talked a little bit about networking with a purpose and the idea that you could use networking as a way of avoiding work, or you could use it as a way of building your calling, building your influence, and building your work. And today I wanted to dive a little deeper into that. I wanted to talk some about networking with purpose. See, in some extent, I think it's easy to start thinking about networking with purpose and begin to get a very selfish focused, to look at networking as just what can relationships do for me? What can I get out of this relationship? What can I get out of you? It almost becomes in some ways a very selfish sort of thing where you're looking at every relationship and you're really turning it into a transaction. If I do this for you, then you'll do that for me. And the truth is that doesn't work. When it comes to developing your influence, if you have that transactional view about everything, it doesn't work. And yet, networking needs to be done with a purpose. It needs to be done with a meaning behind it. You should be thinking about, what do I want to get from this relationship? The trick is you have to think about it not in a selfish way. This is another one of those examples of a both and. You can't think about it just in terms of what you can get from the relationship. You also need to think about what can you give into the relationship. And what's more, you always want to give before you get. Meaning you have to give with no expectation of getting anything in return, but rather just get and give for someone, not so that you can get something, but so that you can build the relationship, so that you can deepen the connection. And networking with purpose means that you have to give often and frequently before you ever expect to get something back. Networking with purpose in that way can begin to develop your influence. If you truly have an open mind and an open heart, and you look at relationships in terms of not just what I can personally get out of this relationship, but what can I put into it? Can I make a referral to you on your business with somebody else? Is one of my clients maybe the perfect ideal client for you? Maybe I need your services. That's all in a business relationship. You can even think about it from a personal relationship. Do I know somebody that you need to know? Do I know a friend or a family member that would actually benefit from making a connection with you? Is there something I can do to release and remove a blockage from your ability to live out your calling? Is there something I can do to build you up in some way? Is there something I can do that will help you and truly enhance your ability to do business, to live out your calling, to have better relationships, to make new friends, to find a church home? Whatever it is, you have to think broad. And to do that, you actually have to network deeper than just the surface level. See, one of the things and one of the problems that can happen in a lot of networking events is you just kind of go in there and it becomes almost like, the business card ninja. You walk into a networking event and people are just kind of throwing cards at each other and very much setting up with this, hey, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? Kind of relationship. And they're looking for just those people who they think they can do business with, who they think can help them in some way. They're very selfish, very transactional. It just doesn't work well. And the problem with that is nobody enjoys that. Nobody likes that feeling. Nobody wants to have that kind of experience. You don't, and neither does anyone else. So why then do it yourself? Why then have that same sort of mentality yourself? Why look for ways to just get into these transactional networking environments? But if you instead look at them as a way of deepening the relationship, as a way of connecting with people at a deeper level, as a way of actually helping others and serving others with no ulterior motive, and you actually spend the time to have a conversation with someone that's deeper than what do you do? Here's my card. So that you learn something about their hopes and their desires and their dreams and what their business looks like and who they want to serve and what do their ideal client look like? What kinds of things do they want you to listen for so you can identify people who need their services? If you network with people at a deeper level, then all of a sudden you begin to develop your influence, because the truth is everyone loves to talk about themselves. Everyone wants to know that you care. Everyone wants to know that you really want to get to know them. And if they feel that, then they're going to want to get to know you. And as they do that, then they're going to know more about your business. They're going to know more about who you serve. They may become a client themselves, or they may introduce you to a client. This is one of the reasons that I love BNI, because the structure behind BNI is set up with this mentality of giver's gain and building relationships. It forces you to do that. And I'm in a great BNI group that really does this well. But one of the problems that a lot of people have is they want to network like this. They want to build relationships, but then they come to me and they say, my personality doesn't let me. I don't like people. I'm an introvert. Maybe I'm a high D and I just don't see the value in having this sort of mentality. I'm a high driver. I want to get out there and get things done. Or I'm a introvert versus an extrovert. Or I'm a C and I'm very task oriented and I have a hard time having conversations with people. Or I'm an I and I get distracted and want to talk about all the fun stuff, but I don't really get to ever talk about business. Or I'm an S and I'm so worried about hurting others' feelings that I really don't want to have those conversations. But the truth is, all personality types can network effectively. You just have to learn how to do it within your personality. If you're a C, you want to develop a process and a system, a script that you use, certain questions that you always ask, certain things that you always talk about. You actually can rehearse small talk. Trust me, it's possible. I'm a high C. I do this all the time. If you're a high D, you need to realize that, yes, you're a driver and want to get things done, but one of the things that you can get done is making connections with others that will grow your business faster than it ever grew before, and you'll be able to succeed and grow in a way that you didn't before. When you recognize that, then getting things done includes networking. If you're high I, well, you've got to learn to focus not just on the business being fun, but actually growing the business. Because here's the truth. If you really love what you do and you love connecting with people and you love serving people and you love helping people, the better you get at networking and actually having those questions and making those connections, not just as someone that you want to go hang out with, but someone that you can do business with, the more fun you get to have, because that's part of the fun. And if you're an S, you have to realize that one of the best ways that you can nurture and care for and love on others is by making those connections, actually spending the time to have the conversation and listen. You're probably in some ways the most natural networker in terms of listening, but oftentimes you have the most fear around doing the talking. And so you need to practice that and learn that that's part of caring for others, is letting people know what it is you do. Because if they need your services and you never tell them about it, then you really haven't helped them and you haven't served them well. Telling people what you do and why you do it is one of the most powerful ways that you can help and nurture others. And when you begin to reprogram your thinking around that way, it doesn't matter that you're an introvert. That just means you have to take a nap after the networking event. It doesn't matter if you're an extrovert. That means you naturally like to have those conversations. You get energy from having those conversations. In either case, depending on what your 4 personality types are and what that mix is, you can begin to learn to network with a purpose. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much for listening to the Inspired Stewardship podcast. As a subscriber and listener, we challenge you to not just sit back and passively listen, but act on what you've heard and find a way to live your calling. If you like this episode on the stewardship of talent, you can go over to inspiredstewardship.com/talent and sign up for our 5-week series on the stewardship of talent. Or if you're in the U.S., you can text 44222 talent tips. That's talent tips to 44222 and get those tips. Until next time, invest your time, your talent, and your treasures. Develop your influence and impact the world.